I forgot to hit record. Oh, no, I have hit record. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Beyond the Night. We've got another special video for you. We've got George in from Everything NFFC. How you doing, George? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. I mean, the game's come round super quick.
Yeah.
Literally, you played on Monday. But, I mean, well, first of all, how was the game against Crystal Palace?
Yeah, it was good. Obviously, we won 1-0, so that obviously helped. It was I think it said more about Palace than it did Forest, in all honesty. I thought we were about par for what we've been this season, but it wasn't anything special from us. Just we look like a well-organised team at the moment, and we're creating chances as well. Chris Wood's obviously scoring the goals, so 1-0 was probably about fair.
Fair enough. And in terms of that, what were you coming into the season at the beginning? Did you have any expectation or ambitions, or was it just to try and stay up?
A bit of both, really. So I was more confident than I have been in the last two seasons, because I think first season was always going to be a case of surviving. We'd been outside the Prem since 1999. A lot of the players we came up with were on loan, so we didn't really have any Premier League players in the squad. So, okay, 30 signings obviously got a lot of stake, but we did need to make a lot of signings, and it was all about just staying up, which we did. Second year, I think we suffered a bit from second season syndrome. We tried to perhaps push on a bit too quickly, but we still stayed up, had a points deduction, obviously managerial change, which I'm sure will come up soon with the Steve Cooper topic. But yeah, it was a bit underwhelming, but we still stayed up. And then this year, it's kind of a year where we kind of think 3 seasons, this is time to now kick on. So I was kind of thinking lower mid-table, 13th, comfortably no relegation battle. And yeah, obviously we're currently 8th, only 8 games in. So try not to get too carried away, but it's been a very good start.
Yeah, and I'm with you. And there's part of it is because you picked up points at the end of the day. That's all it is. And some teams, again, you're ahead of Man United at the moment, which is, again, kind of it's just a bit of a crazy old season. But just on that, because, again, about 2 years ago, you came to our ground, Steve Cooper, I think it was a Tuesday night.
I think it was a Monday night. Yeah, it was another midweek one, Monday.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, you're right. Actually, it was a Monday night, and obviously we beat you there. But then obviously you went on and won. But at the time, I remember you were rock bottom. We were rock bottom. Aston Villa were terrible, and Wolves, the only 4 Midlands clubs. All of us were rock bottom of the Premier League. What do you remember coming into that match? Because again, both fans were pretty much in despair. I think we're both on 1 point at that time.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like I'm saying this just in hindsight, but I actually went into that game with a really bad feeling. Like most of the Forest fans thought, okay, this is a perfect chance. We need a win. We're playing Leicester, bottom of the league. This is a real chance for us. But I kind of thought, no, Leicester, obviously that team on paper was one of the best to go down, I think. It had obviously Harvey Barnes, James Maddison, and we weren't looking anywhere near Premier League standard at that point. And I kind of thought this is probably the day where Leicester get going. Obviously, Leicester seeing it as a rivalry gives it that bit of extra edge, and I think Leicester were just far more up for it and had the better players on paper. And obviously, it showed with a game that won't live long in the memory of Forest fans.
Yeah, the thing is, you did win because I remember Steve Cooper got awarded another contract after that as well.
Yeah,
shortly after that game. And we may have won that battle, but we definitely lost the war for that season because again, the end of the day, you stayed up and we went down.
Yeah.
And again, I think looking back to them, what can you remember games-wise that have been your favourite Leicester versus Forest games?
Well, the thing is, we haven't actually played that much recently. Obviously, you went up, did your brilliant Premier title, Champions League, FA Cup. You lived through a very good era, and during that era, we were still stuck in the Championship where you left us almost. So, I think the last time we won at the King Power, I think it was about 2013, and we've only been to the King Power once since, and that was obviously the 4-0 defeat. So in terms of, it goes back quite a way, but I remember there was one where I think it was Forest 5, Leicester 1, Robbie Earnshaw. I'd guess about 2010. I was only about 7 or 8 years old, so I can't remember it well. But that's the only real positive that comes from Forest, to be honest. The others, I was kind of too young to remember.
Fair enough. And I was trying to think. I don't really have too many. Obviously, from our end, we've won a couple. Obviously, the FA Cup, the year you won that at your ground, the year after we won the FA Cup, and then knocks out that. That was another great game. And I think there's been another year. So we mentioned the 4. I think it's 4-0. Is it 4-1?
4-0 King Power 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the reverse fixture was one of the most boring games I've ever watched. Both teams were awful. I remember that Brendan Johnson got 2 goals late on, but that one was just a really. Both teams are like, I just want to forget this game.
Well, yeah, we obviously enjoyed it, but yeah, I think that season our home form was brilliant. I think it was like the 7th or 8th best in the league, and our away form was by far the worst. We only won one away game. It got to April, and we'd still only scored 4 goals away from home. So that just shows how good the home form was to stay up. So we went into the away game with, I went into the away game with little expectation, but home against Leicester in that season, it kind of felt like, yeah, this is a real opportunity to get 3 points, and thankfully we did it.
Yeah, no, you did. And coming into, obviously, with the change up, we're probably going to see Cooper in a bit. But in terms of how that's changed under Nuno, have you seen it be more balanced over, where it's like not as emphasis on your home games, or how's that changed?
It's completely switched, funny enough. So our away games, we won our last 3 away games last season. Obviously, this season we've beaten Liverpool away, beat Southampton away, drawn to Chelsea and Brighton, who, in and around European places. So we've been brilliant on the road. It's actually our home form that's let us down. So I think we've only won 3 home games in 2024, and one of those was on Monday night. So obviously it bodes well for us, I guess, going away to Leicester on Friday. But who knows in football?
Yeah, exactly. And again, I'm glad it's on the telly, but I think coming into this, we've mentioned a little bit about him already. How do you feel about Nuno as general, as your manager? Because at the beginning of the season, he was probably one of the managers that was linked, probably the first, when people talk about the first manager to go, Nuno was one of the ones that been mentioning. But how do you feel about him?
Well, obviously, we're 8th in the Premier League, so he's super popular at the moment. One thing I would say is he's not necessarily the best in the media. So in terms of what you see as a fan, he took a bit of the time to get acclimatised to. It was, there's a bit of a warming period, and obviously Cooper was so well regarded at Forest, so it's a difficult job to take over from him. But he kept us up, which is what he was meant to do. And then this was kind of a season where he was going to be judged if we judged on basically if we'd started the season poorly. I'm sure fans would have turned on him, but we haven't. We look like we're playing well and we're getting the results to show. So yeah, he's super popular and a proper established Premier League manager, I think.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think it's weird that you say that, because again, when I was speaking to Wolves fans, they absolutely adored him. In terms of not just for what he did for the club, obviously similar to Steve Cooper, coming up, keeping them in the league, getting them Europa football, but also for the stuff he did off the pitch, they really enjoyed him as well.
Yeah, so he's starting to get a bit of recognition for that, but again, it's not really been too well publicised. I've heard from people who have met him, or you just see the occasional tweet on Twitter, how he's actually a really down to earth, nice guy, really switched on in that sense as well. But it's not really been too well publicised. It'd be nice to see a bit more of that in the press, but. Yeah, he's super popular for us at the moment, obviously, with us being 8th from the Premier League, so can't complain at all.
Yeah, no, exactly. And again, just enjoy it being up in those positions where you can, and especially with other teams faltering and kind of us. We'll get into that in a little bit, but just in general, again, we've got to sort. We've been recording for about 8 minutes, and yet we haven't talked about Steve Cooper yet, have we? So initially, when you saw he was joining Leicester, what were your initial thoughts?
It was tough to see, but it would have been tough to see him go anywhere. Like, it's just because he kind of felt like almost Mr. Forest in a way. But we still hold him in really high regard. We wouldn't be anywhere near where we are now if it wasn't for him. We could even be in League One, or who knows where he took us from bottom of the Championship to the Premier League. That when he came in, it was just about staying in the Championship. So yeah, absolutely no bad words to say about Cooper. We still wish him all the best. Obviously, it being Leicester is that bit of an extra twist to it, but yeah, we still hope Cooper goes on to have a successful managerial career.
Yeah, I understand that. And I think with how, again, at the moment, we're not in the bottom. We've created a little bit of a gap from the bottom, and we'll come on to like the relegation battle. Let's get to the table at the moment. Where's it gone? It's getting on the table again. We are in 14th place. Obviously, you're up in 8th at the moment, which is, again, ahead of, again, if you said this time of the season you were heading a Newcastle and Manchester United, that's unbelievable. But yeah, coming into like Leicester in the 14th position, he is doing his job. But are you surprised? Again, I'm not expecting you to, but from your perspective, are you surprised with the job he's done so far?
Yeah, I think from an outside perspective, I think he's doing a really good job at Leicester. Obviously, it was no secret the off the pitch issues in terms of potential points deductions, lack of transfer activity. The gulf between the Premier League and the Championship is so huge now, and it's growing each year. I think that obviously showed with the 3 who came up last year going back down. And I think a lot of people wrote Leicester off, and I'm perhaps one of them who thought Leicester would be the dead certs for relegation. But yeah, they've obviously won the last two, is it? And got a few impressive draws before that. So they're in good form. Cooper's a genius. We all think that still. He kept Forest up against the odds, and he seems to be on track to do that for Leicester. If you go on points per game, that'd be more than enough to stay up. So yeah, I think Cooper's doing a superb job. I know he's obviously got a bit of it's still not completely won over the fans, but I mean, hopefully for him that will happen soon.
It's a weird one, I think, because you'll know this firsthand. It's this whole for us. It's really frustrating because he's on that cusp of there's things that he does right and there's things that he does wrong that are obvious that with fans are saying, come on, you should fix that. So I think he did the same thing at for you as well, where he played one out and out winger when we've got three great wingers. He's only playing one at one time. The football again. To be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of him. As long as he keeps us up, I'm happy. But I don't know if he's the right manager going forward. And you're starting to see the people are booing, but it's not because of him being the manager. It's because his tactics and sometimes don't make sense. For example, we've got how we'll probably come on to in a second, who did really well against Southampton, but he's playing Jordan Ayew, who is more of he's a good player, but he's not a player that's going to win you games or is going to give you the foot. And he's playing for 90 minutes. So there's frustrating things in general about him, but I'm just saying is I'm not saying he's a bad manager. I just don't think he's the right fit for Leicester for the long term, and I don't think it's getting carried away.
I feel like the Premier League has almost taken the joy out of managing a goalkeeper. When he came in, he was this young, exciting manager playing a 3-4. It was a 3-4-1-2 almost, and it was attack. It was really good free-flowing football. We got in the Premier League, we tried it, we lost 4-0 to Leicester, we had a shocking start to the season, and he had to adapt. A lot of managers didn't adapt, but arguably you could argue Leicester didn't adapt, and that's why we went down. But Cooper did. It wasn't as fun to watch the style of football, but it was effective. It did get us results, and that's kind of what I'm seeing happening at Leicester. It's maybe not the best style of football, but if it keeps you up and it gets you results, then it's hard to complain, really. So, I really hope Cooper can win over the fans. So, yeah.
Again, you're right. Like in anything in football, winning will just solve and mask over anything. So if you keep winning or you keep getting points, people are going to be on side. So yeah, I'm with you. And then coming into kind of this season, obviously some people talk about the wingers, etc. with you, but who's been your favourite player to watch so far?
Gibbs White's always a joy to watch. He's unlikely to play against Leicester, though, so I won't dwell on that too much in this podcast. Elliot Anderson, though, filled the 10 hole brilliantly against Palace. He's 21 years of age, England under 21 international. There's little doubt in my mind he'll be a future England player. We only got from Newcastle because of a PSR loophole, and that's probably the only good thing to come out of PSR last season. But yeah, he's also joy to watch. Hudson-Odoi when he cuts inside and bends into the far corner, brilliant. That's a one-trick pony almost though. And Woods obviously has got the old-fashioned centre forward, heading in the goals, poachers finishes, nice finish against Palace as well. So we just look like a well-drilled team this season, and there's obviously a few players in there who are exciting to watch.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. And speaking of Hudson-Odoi, because again, I think that'll be a key battle in the game, playing on the left.
Yeah.
James Justin is where a lot of the goals are coming from down that right back position. So if he can get something, we've been quite even against Southampton, we conceded twice from the same position. So I think you mentioned a wrong trick pony, but if he can get his run on James,
Justin, that's the thing. Like it's obvious what he's going to do. He's going to get the ball, try and cut inside, and get a shot away. Everyone knows that, I think, but it's one thing knowing it and nothing stopping it. And I think this could be one of those where you look at and think, this could be a Hudson-Odoi game.
Yeah, potentially. And I think that's what we've seen so far from a Leicester perspective. Teams have been targeting that right-hand side of us. Is that something that happened at Forest at all? Or is that just something that... Is it something that... I'm just trying to think, is it something that's... When I'm speaking to people like Brendan Rodgers, and there were certain things, I'm like, they're doing the same thing over here. So is it something that people just attack, like the left-hand side, the right back?
It's not something I'm aware of. It probably does happen. We probably do that. They would say unintentionally because Elanga's more on the right. He's more a get the ball, dribble at pace, and then try and get across in. So it's not actually on the right side for that long. He's kind of a get the ball and get rid of it. Whereas Hudson-Odoi is more one who will take a touch, hold it up a little bit. So it probably does spend longer on the left when it's over there than on the right. But yeah, it's not a huge thing I've spotted, to be honest.
Fair enough. I just wanted to see, but yeah, that's fair enough. And then just in terms of some of you mentioned Elliot Anderson as well. Is there been any key players that you think that would be really one to watch in terms of the game?
The back line's been brilliant. So Milenkovic came from Fiorentina for I think about 12 million at centre back, and he's been outstanding. I think Newcastle already been linked with £50 million moves for him. So yeah, he's a proper giant. Wins every aerial duel. Like, it doesn't even look like he's trying. There's an image of Nketiah. It looks like he's tussling for his life. And Milenkovic just stood there casually, almost looking at who to pass it to. Moreno's obviously a quality centre back, another young one in there. Fullbacks can bomb forward and defend well. It's just a well balanced team at the moment. Yeah, it's more a well coached side rather than necessarily individuals.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. And with that, with it being a well balanced side, is it something that you've needed for a while? Because sometimes it has been like individuals pulling you out, or maybe under Cooper it was slightly different. But is it just a different like era where you mentioned it before? You were kind of relegation. Now you're kind of growing into be like a solid Premier League team.
Yeah, I think balance is obviously key if you want to become an established Prem side. Like we can actually deal with the injuries now as before any key injuries or suspensions, and we'd be kind of scuppered for next game. But now Gibbs White's injured, our best player, and Elliot Anderson looks like a really good replacement in that 10. And we've also got players who can play in a variety of positions. We've actually got probably our first Danilo Sangaro injured. They probably be our first two midfielders if everyone's fit. But we haven't really missed them. Like, we've been injured from the start of the season, really, and we're doing well without them. So I think we've now got a complete squad rather than a good 11, which is obviously great to see.
Yeah, and again, to survive in the Premier League or to be a good Premier League team, you need that depth as part of that. And speaking of depth, again, the players play for both of our squads didn't really get too much of a look in at Leicester. Chris Wood now starting up front with you. What did you make of him so far?
Yeah, he's one of those who's been everywhere. So he's been Leicester in a whole variety of places. But he's been great for us. He's took a few months to get going. He signed in January, and that season he got written off by a lot of fans far too soon, I think. And then since then, though, certainly since Nuno's come in, he's been scoring not quite every game, but I think he's the third top goal scorer for him after Haaland and Palmer since Nuno came in. So yeah, and it's a well taken goal. He's just your old fashioned centre forward, and he's winning us so many points, scoring so many goals. You could argue we are a bit reliant on him, but we've still got Tyrell Wondy, who's been obviously a good player over the years. He's our backup striker now, so I think that shows how far we've come in terms of having a balanced squad.
It's obviously great, but it's almost as if we're moving into this like Pep Guardiola inverted fullbacks, false nines, etc. It is kind of a throwback seeing a player like Chris Wood. Again,
Yeah,
the thing is, he's good. The thing is, I think you're right, but he is surprisingly good with his ball at his feet, as well as I think that's something he doesn't get as much credit for.
Like, he scored a hat trick against Newcastle away on Boxing Day last season, and they're actually three really well taken goals. Like, he's a bit of dribbling in there, rounds the keeper, nice little chip as well. Palace was a well taken volley, takes it early, which is what catches Henderson out. So yeah, I think it kind of goes to show that you can do both sides of the game, and there's also still a role to play for the old fashioned striker in modern day football.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. And in terms of a couple of other things that I've got, because again, pretty much there's got in general, who would be if we bring up the table at the moment? If you were to think about, obviously, I think Forest again obviously aren't going down, but who do you think are? If I bring up the table at the moment, who do you think are the three teams that would go down? Obviously, last year it was the three teams that got promoted that all went back down. But what do you make this season?
In all honesty, I would probably say the three who came up would go down again. I think Southampton looked dead certs. Ipswich, I thought, were putting up a bit of a fight, but they lost 2-0 at home to Everton at the weekend, and you can't really be doing that at home if you want to stay up. So I think Ipswich will unfortunately go down. And I think Wolves, Everton and Leicester, I think that's kind of a battle for the other spot. I can't really see anyone else getting dragged into it. I think Palace will pick up. I think West Ham will pick up. I think Brentford will be okay. So I think between Leicester, Wolves and Everton, if I had to say, I do think Leicester at the moment. I think Everton will be okay under Dyche. And although Wolves have had a shocking start, we've had some really tough fixtures. So unfortunately, I'll have to go for the same for who came out.
Fair enough. I think I hear your point, because I think Everton find a way. Everton have
Yeah,
always found a way.
like, if this is what he does, he keeps things up.
Yeah. Even last season with the 2 points deductions, they still managed to keep up, and not just slightly comfortably.
Yeah,
Even
but I was
though, yeah, and you mentioned, yeah, I'm with you. I think it's Southampton and Ipswich. I think Ipswich have taken a gamble, and they've gone, we'll make the best of the Championship and see if they can thrive in the Prem.
yes, it's almost
Not,
similar to what Luton tried, and it didn't quite work. Okay, they did keep us on our toes for a while, but ultimately they still got, I think, 26 points, which is nowhere near enough to survive. And I think Ipswich will be similar. They'll put up a fight, but ultimately I don't think they'll quite have enough. But I think Kim McKenna's a great manager, and obviously it's great to see Ipswich back in the Prem, because it's been quite a long time since we saw them here. So unfortunately, I don't think it will last long though.
yeah, I know what you mean. And for us again, I think we will stay up, but again, it's who takes our place. And Wolves, we don't. Wolves, they could turn it on, and but then again, it's who else? And you're looking. There's not really many other teams.
Yeah,
That I'm like,
it seems like the golf has just got so big now. There's only really Wolves and Everton who I can see being down there.
yeah, I think Palace will sort it out
Mm.
eventually.
They
But
did look very poor Monday night though. So if they keep, I think they've got enough quality players in there to pick up. If Glasson doesn't sort it out, then I think someone else will come in and sort it out. I think it's one of those where they will improve, but who knows? It's almost similar to when Leicester went down 2 years ago. But
yeah,
that has a similar feel.
yeah, and with that again, just thinking Roy Hodgson back for the third term
Yeah,
to
they
rescue them out of relegation.
mm.
But yeah, in terms of, and also just coming into the game again, is there anything for Leicester fans, or any kind of players that you think that we should look out for in terms of kind of for attacking? You mentioned like the centre back. Was anybody else?
So I think defensively will be really hard to break down. So I think as a team we'll have Yates in there, kind of breaking up, playing midfield, a solid back four behind him. Sales and goal has been brilliant the last 2 games. He's really kept us in it. And then the attacking four, you're probably going to have Anderson, Hudson-Odoi, and Wood of a guaranteed 3 before. Obviously, we was touching Anderson and Hudson-Odoi and Wood already. On the right hand side, it will be interesting. It could be a Langer who's out of form, or it could be a first start for Jota Silva, who's he signed from a Portuguese side, Vitória, in the summer. He's one of those. He's probably a nightmare to train and coach. He's full of energy. He's been giving us half an hour bursts, and yeah, he's impressed. So a lot of fans want to see him start on Friday night.
Fair enough. And just from your perspective, from seeing, obviously speaking to other fans of Premier League teams, etc., have you seen? I saw this when we came up, and then obviously we won the league and everything. That's a bit mental, but how did the perception? How's the perception of Forest seen from other fans? Like if you talk to them, because at times, obviously, if it's easy to come up, you're probably like, yeah, probably going to go back down, signed X amount of players, etc. Have you seen like people's opinions shift from the outside on Forest?
Yeah, I think people now are starting to see us as more of an established Prem side. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk in the media about how well we started the season, and I don't think people are really seeing Forest as a relegation threatened side anymore, which is obviously refreshing to hear. Uh, there's obviously a lot of talk about the off the pitch stuff in terms of the points deductions. Our owners banned from same to 5 games. Gibbs White picked up another suspension. Nuno's banned from the touchline for another 2 games still. We obviously have a points deduction last year, so there's obviously a lot of questions around what's actually going on off the pitch. But yeah, I won't start ranting about that, because I think Forest feel very hard done by, rightly so, but we could obviously handle it better than we are. But I think that's kind of how the mood's changed, really.
Fair enough. And just with that as well, with Nuno, do you think he'll make that much of a difference with him not being on the touchline?
Who It's one of those where who really knows like how much of an impact the manager has on the touchline. You'd think a lot, and I think it in general it is a big difference. But I couldn't really see much of a difference on Monday in terms of the way we played. We actually picked up a rare home win. The style of play was very similar. Nuno said he's constantly like on the walkie-talkies down to the dugout, and then constant communication still. So it'd be interesting to see, but obviously on Monday it made no difference, and hopefully it can make no difference on Friday, and we continue this impressive away form.
Yeah, no, it sounds good. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a tough battle in terms of a game, because going forward wise, we are kind of relying on individual brilliance. But if your defense is that going to be that strong, if we attack with the 4, and you're saying the defense is going to be that strong, and it has been that strong, I'm
Yeah,
really struggling to see how we get through it.
we've only conceded 6 over the season, so I think that's the second best defence in the league, and I think the third best defence is conceded 8. So we've actually got 2-goal margin on that. Liverpool also been brilliant, apart from when we did beat them at Anfield, but I think we've only conceded 3 goals. But we're now so far so good. Obviously, it could just be a spell of good form, but I like to think on paper this is a solid back four as well, and it can be, it can keep defending well.
Yeah, we'll have to see, and only time will tell when we come to obviously Saturday or after Friday once the game's finished. Because I think the only thing I would say is that we've scored, I think, in every game in the Premier League. We're one of 2 teams that it was us, Arsenal, and Man City, and obviously Arsenal didn't score at the weekend, so then it's just us and Man City. So I think it'll be an interesting tussle. Is there anybody that you're kind of looking out for from a Forest end for Leicester?
I've not necessarily done my full research on the Leicester side. Fatawu obviously has got a good record. I think he looks like a dangerous player on his day. Vardy's still finding a way to score the goals. Jordan Ayew, I hope this doesn't come back to bite me, but I think he's one of those who's good to have in the squad. But is he necessarily a Premier League starter? I'm not convinced.
I think he'll start, though. I'll be honest with you. This is a kind of Cooper thing where I agree with that opinion, but Steve Cooper will still play.
Yeah, so we had Andre Ayew, his brother, and he was getting game time at Forest, and nobody understood why. Like, it kind of feels virtually the same. It's obviously the same family as well. But we obviously know Steve Cooper can pull off the unlikely. He's a footballing genius. We all still think so. We'll be very wary of any side managed by Steve Cooper.
And what kind of reception do you think he'll get from the away fans?
I think he'll get a good one. I think I'd be absolutely amazed if there was any booing or any ill feeling. I think the worst that can happen for Cooper is if we start seeing his charts and back in the Forest days, it just still almost wind up the Leicester fans. But it will all be in good nature. Like, Cooper is still here at Forest. Like, there's very, very few fans, with less than 1%, who have any bad feeling towards him. So he'll get a good reception, and hopefully we keep up with respect to him.
Yeah, I think so. Again, and I think it'll be an interesting game, as you mentioned, the defense and our attack being there again. Jamie Vardy's still kicking it at the moment. But yeah, again, it should be. And have you played much on? How do you tend to focus more at night? Because again, I always think that Leicester City when it's dark, our ground, we put on a bit of an atmosphere, and it tends to, we'll say, overwhelm we tend to turn up more in the evening games.
Yeah, I think we'd often say the same, but what I get particularly cautious about going to Leicester, and this is probably quite a controversial thing to say on the Leicester podcast, but Leicester see it as a rivalry far more than we do, and Leicester obviously give that extra 10%. Whereas for us, it's not just any old game; it's a bit of an added spice to it. But it's nothing like when we play Derby, and I think Leicester, just the fans are way more up for it. And the players seem to be way more up for it, hence why we lost 4-0 there 2 years ago. So I just hope that Forest will be up for the occasion, is my hope. That's my only slight concern. I feel like we took it a bit lightly and caught us by surprise that Friday night 2 years ago.
Yeah, well, and then I think, there was an element of, I think, up to that point where we scored the first goal, it was from what I remember, it was a pretty even game.
Yeah, Dennis missed a big chance, but it felt, even though it's fairly early on in the season, it kind of felt like we've already been and done this before. We'll miss a chance, and then Leicester will score, and it won't just be one. There'll be one, and then it'll be 2, and then it'll be 3, and then it'll be 4 in quick succession. So I think in the first half of the season, we lost 6-0 to City, 4-0 to Leicester, 5-0 to Arsenal. There were a few, not good-looking score lines, and there were also a few, virtually all of them were dire performances for that first half of the season. So yeah, not a spell we look back on too fondly, but ultimately we stayed up. So a great season nonetheless.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then just going back to that, when Steve Cooper, were you surprised that he was sacked at the time? Because obviously, with his relationship with the fans, etc. When he was got rid of, what do you think?
It kind of felt like the writing was on the wall. He'd pushed us luck a few times. Obviously, after Leicester, he nearly went when we lost away at Leeds later on in that season. And he'd had a few run-ins with the owner. It was kind of pretty clear things weren't good behind the scenes. And then we were 5-0 down away at Fulham, and that was kind of one where I thought, okay, there's no way he comes back from this. And we were still singing his name, but that was the first time where it felt like we were singing his name as a goodbye rather than as a please stay. It was probably his time. He might have taken us as far as he was going to take us as well.
Fair enough. But yeah, George, it's been great chatting with you. Anything you like? Where can the people find you? Anything you want to plug?
So I'm on Instagram, everything NFFC, or if you search Nottingham Forest fan page 101, that's where you'll find me. Obviously, posting Forest content, all the big news, and interacting with fans on there. So if anyone does want to follow, that'd be much appreciated.
Yeah, I'll make sure to leave that down in the description. Be nice, even though I don't think you'll get a lot, to be honest.
No,
George,
lesson to be my audience.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be much. But yeah, George, thank you so much for joining in. Everybody, if you make sure you like, subscribe, we'll be back after the post-match of reviewing the game. And I'll see you all then. So goodbye.